Misty Nesbitt is the author of The Girl Who Kept Breathing, a powerful debut memoir about survival, resilience, and the courage to break silence. A mum of 6, grandmother of 5, Misty shares her deeply personal story, including being married off at 14, yes, that's 14, to remind others who felt broken, forgotten, or neglected that they are not alone. Originally from Texas, now living in rural Tennessee, Misty's writing blends raw honesty with hope, offering proof that even in the darkest moments we can survive. Her message is clear: silence can destroy us, but our past does not define our future, and choosing to keep breathing in itself is an act of strength. Gosh, there's a lot there already. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how did this all happen? So, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. That's very, really kind
Thank
of
you for
you.
having me.
I guess I have to start really by asking if you could share a little of the story of your childhood. How did your upbringing lead you to being married off at 14 years of age?
We had a mother that, of course, my sister and I have a different father. We were raised by our stepfather and our mother, and he was a alcoholic and a drug addict and abusive, physically, mentally, sexually. And our mother would tuck away into her room, and she didn't want to deal with him. You know, as children, we just thought that she didn't want to deal with him. Looking back, we really think that my mother was a narcissist. She had us convinced for so many years that she was the victim, not us, because she had to stay with this man because of us, because she couldn't support us. So we just had to tolerate it. We had to deal with it. And we needed to stop being so dramatic. It wasn't going to be the end of the world. My sister was thrown out of the street at 13 years old. I was lucky enough to go to a state home for 4 years, from 10 to 14. And I think that's the difference in our lives. Is I knew love as a child. I knew normal. That home, you know, in juvenile, which is where you send children, like a jail for children, was better than home. So I actually had people that cared about me and loved me, and I was safe there, where she wasn't. And when she just got to be so rebellious because she couldn't deal with what was going on anymore, they just threw her out of the street. So that's my childhood. I came home from my state home, and my mother introduced me to an older boy, adult. And then she told me if I got married that I could be an adult and move out of her house and do what I wanted to. But I had to sign my name. So, sure. In 3 weeks, she threw together a sham of a wedding. We went to Goodwill. She bought me a wedding dress, and there it was.
And what happened to your sister?
My sister survived on the street however she could for a long time. She got married, I believe she was 16 or 17, and she married somebody of a different race. And I really think so. My stepfather was very racist, and I think she thought by picking somebody from a different race that it was going to protect her. It would make her nasty, so he would leave her alone. It never did. But he was smart enough to never do things to us where there could be proof. You know, and he'd tell my mother he was checking on us because we were bad girls. That's what he was doing in our room all hours of the night. So, and our punishments were terrible. My sister told me to start peeing the bed so he would stop touching me. And so he would throw me outside, and we lived in a trailer park. He would throw me outside and make my sister go round up all the neighborhood kids to come see me in a diaper. And they'd all throw rocks at me and call me names. I sucked my thumb. And so they would black tape straight pins on my thumb when I slept, so I stabbed myself when I put my thumb in my mouth at night, or they'd soak my hand in chili peppers for hours, so that when I stuck my thumb in my mouth, it'd burn, or I'd rub my eyes and it'd burn. So he had very cruel punishments. We would have to stand in the hallway on our tiptoes on black tape the whole time for hours. You couldn't let you stand on your tiptoes for hours. I mean, it was not uncommon for 3, 4, 5 hours. And the other siblings would sit there and eat candy and ice cream in your face the whole time, and you couldn't move. So affection was a prize we all had to earn. Attention was a prize we had to earn. Our mother would pit us against each other so she could be the savior. And none of us have a good relationship with each other because we've been, my sister and I and my brother, we've all been pitted against each other. Our mother would go tell one of them, so and so said this. She'd go tell the other one, so and so said this, just so she could watch us fight. So I don't know what pleasure she took out of that, but she's done it her whole life. So I looked like my stepfather, or like my biological father, and that became words of a weapon. It was when she brushed my hair, she'd tell me how much she hated my hair. It was stringy and knotty and a rat's nest and greasy like his. And she'd say, "You look just like him." But I always felt terrible because I looked like him. It took me getting to be an adult to realize that, hey, that was not my fault. I didn't choose my father. So he was not I only met my father twice in my life. Um, he, the first time that I met him, he traded me for $100 in heroin. I was trying to leave my abusive husband, my first husband that I was married off to, and I was pregnant with our son, and he was hiding our daughter from me, and I had nowhere to go. My mother wouldn't let me come home, and so she called me to the house and told me to come over there, and then my biological father, whom I never met, was there waiting on me, and he took me to the town he lived in, and we stopped at this person's house, and they went in the bedroom and talked. He came back and said, "I'll be back later." And I knew then. I was 17. I knew then what he'd done to me. I had to get a hold of his mother and his sisters to come get me. They had to come pay for me. So
What was when did you decide to put your story on paper and share it? It must have been a very difficult decision to make. Obviously, you kept the past secret for a long time. What was the moment when you thought, no, I really do need to share this story?
well, it didn't start off that way. It started off that I wanted to fix what's broken in me. And I've seen lots of therapists and I've seen lots of things. And a friend of mine said, you really need to just write it down. And so I just started writing it. And it wasn't to publish a book. It was just to write it, to get it out, to get it off of me so I could be free from what they've had me keep secret, because they would tell everybody I was a liar. They'd tell everybody that I was crazy because my biological father was schizophrenic. They'd say, oh, she's schizophrenic like him. So they were very good at manipulating people against my sister and I. And so after I wrote it down, I read it. And then I looked at it from a different perspective and said, I cannot believe I survived that. And all of these things that I've held as guilt to myself over my lifetime, they really are things that I've survived. And given the options I had, I always made the best choice. It may have not have been a choice somebody else would have made, but I didn't have options a lot of people had. So that's when I decided I was going to put it in a story. I've always been afraid for people to know. I moved to another state so I could get away from everything and be me, and not have to be weighted down with things that in my past. And I was able to move to another state and heal and become something, become a better mother, become a better wife. And I have an incredible husband now that will probably never read my books because it breaks him. He doesn't think that he could ever read it, but he's so supportive and he's always worked so hard so I could work on me.
So when you got married at 14 to this older boy, this young man, how was I'm afraid to ask, how was that marriage? Did
She
that?
was terrible.
Okay.
And it wasn't, his mother was so abusive. She did not like me. She didn't want him with me. She was so abusive to me. All she ever wanted to do was tear me down. She actually moved in a girl into her house, and he had a girlfriend living in his mother's house for 2 years of our marriage. Another child. She was a child. And all she wanted to do was to take my daughter from me, to hurt me, and they did. The maximum hurt that they could do to me was to say that my son didn't belong to him because I cheated and I was a whore, and to take my daughter. And so we fought in court and physically. And we had joint custody of her, but nobody would help me get her. He would hide her from me, and nobody would help me. And they like to tell everybody that I abandoned her, but I went to jail 34 times fighting for her, until the judge told me if I went to jail one more time that they were going to take my son from me, put him in state's custody. So I had to make a choice. So I didn't have her in my life for over 10 years. So he was not nice to me at all. He was very jealous and controlling. And
So how did you manage to extract yourself from that relationship?
well, he was done with me. He didn't want me no more. I had gotten too old.
So after writing the book and going through therapy and talking and getting some of the feelings and emotions out, do you consider yourself, and these are probably the wrong words, but do you consider yourself healed or fixed or at peace now? How do you feel about yourself now?
I've been at peace for a long time. The word healed, I think, is where so many people get so confused in why they feel like they're broken. Because healed is not something that you just do. And it's bad. It's over. Every day I wake up and I have to make a choice to not let my past haunt me. It's a continuous battle. There'll be moments, there'll be times, there'll be things that remind me of, take me back to a place when I was a helpless child. Or it'll take me back to a place when I was married to my first husband. And I have to make a choice that this is not going to be my future. This is not going to ruin my day. I still have anxiety from it, from a lot of trauma. And they said, well, what happens as a child when you grow up in chaos and you're not safe? Your nervous system develops with that. I can function 100% in a crisis because that's how I learned. When things are calm and at peace, my body panics. It thinks it's not safe. So it's a daily battle. Healing is a daily battle. And that was the hardest thing for me to understand because nobody explained it that way. They said you're going to get therapy, you're going to get help, and you're going to heal. But nobody ever explained what healing actually looks like. It doesn't go away. It's a daily thing you got to deal with. The past is always there. The difference is you can talk about it. You know that it doesn't have power in today.
I think one of the biggest indicators of abuse within families is the history of the people in the family. So how did you break the cycle and become a god mom?
So you only come out of that two ways. A lot of experts tell you come out of that two ways. You're either you're a re-abuser, or you're so controlling because you're trying to protect your children from what you know is out there. And I was the one that was controlling. My kids were never allowed to spend the night with somebody. I always wanted them next to me because I could only keep them safe next to me. They live next to me. The adult children live next to me. So it's a thing I deal with daily, trying not to control their lives as adults. But it's a way that have always kept them safe because I knew the monsters that were lurking in the dark.
I think one one thing people I'm sure are thinking, listen to this now, is did the people in your past, did they ever face justice?
No, no, no. And they'll. I'm really surprised. My book has been out since December, and I'm really surprised we haven't seen a whole lot more stink from them. My ex-husband, his ex-wife, the one he was having an affair with while we were married, she's all over the internet, says my book is a lie. She's clearly not read it because she's not even in this book. This one stopped at 14 when I got married to him. And my mother has not spoke on it yet, but my sister's writing her story. I'm going to help her publish her story. I think it's what she needs to heal. Her childhood was a lot worse than mine. She was my older sister. Worse, yes. She was my older sister, and so he partied with her. You know, he would keep her outside in their garage and keep her on drugs and keep her drunk. We could only imagine for what. So she had a long history of drug addiction because he started her on it at 8, 9 years old. And I mean, you can draw your conclusions on why you keep a 9-year-old addicted to drugs. So I think that's what she needs to heal. So I told her, write it and I hope to publish it. Even if nobody reads it, even if I think it will help her. She's 51 years old and she's been dealing with demons of things that were done to her. Things that, I tell her all the time. She says, I'm embarrassed to tell people that. No, because you were a child. That wasn't a choice you made. It was a choice our mother made. Our mother had a shopping habit. And we were poor. We thought we were poor growing up. We really were not. They made excellent money. They just spent it on drugs and alcohol and $2,000 purses nonstop. And so our mother would expect us to provide the money when she was short, when she wrote hot checks. Well, how do you think a 14 or 13-year-old girl gets money? And she had no problem taking her to do it and expected her to do things that she would have never done to pay their bills. But she always made that our burden. If we don't, even as to an adult, I took care of them up until adult. It's been about 8 or 10 years since I've cut them off and actually got to see who they were and how I was being controlled, because while I was working 18 hours a day, because my mother was taking on my money. My brother was taking on my money. They just had brainwashed us that we are required to take care of them.
Do you have any idea or thought about why they chose to treat you and your sister in this way, but not the other siblings? What?
I only had one other sibling, and he belonged to my stepfather. I'll never know why she did it. I think marrying me off was her way of saving me from him, because she was too weak to leave a man and support her own children. And it's one of the things I've had a struggle dealing with, because I would never be with her. I'd never be like her. There was no way anybody was ever going to control me like he did her. There was no way I was ever going to sacrifice my children to be loved, ever. And that's how we always felt. We were the sacrificial lambs for him, so he'd stay. We were isolated from my biological father's family. We were isolated from her family. She didn't take us around any of them. She didn't really want them knowing what was going on.
Did none of your school teachers or people that just sort of saw you or knew you, did none of them ever say, hey, you this doesn't look good, you're bruised, or your clothes are array, or did they never?
We knew to lie. If we had bruises on us, I had to tell them that my sister beat me up. If she had bruises on her, she had to tell them that I beat her up. There was an instance. It's probably one of the things that happened to her that traumatized me so bad. We were getting bullied by a little boy on school bus. And she was probably 9, 10. This boy was a teenager. He was much older. My stepfather tied her right hand behind her back and told her if she didn't beat that boy up, and I mean beat him, he was going to beat her and she wouldn't be able to sit down. And I just remember the look in her face. It was like she was just blank, like she was a little soldier. She did. She beat that boy up pretty bad. We were only allowed to have one emotion. We couldn't cry. If we cried or we said how we felt, we got beat. We were only allowed to have anger. And even today, it affects me because I don't know how to show up the other emotions really well. So it's hard for me because I was programmed to only show anger. That was the only emotion we were allowed to have. Because we were here as superheroes when we fought, when we did that stuff.
So how did you get from that place to a place where you felt you were worthy of the love of a good man, you could be in a good relationship, you could trust your partner? How on earth did you get to that place?
Bless his heart, it's been a long road for him. And that really is the word. I was insecure that I didn't deserve love from anybody.
Yeah.
And I had to learn to love myself.
Yeah.
You know, when I looked in the mirror, I understand how people see me. That's never been how I see myself. I seen the hair that she hated. I seen the nose that she hated. I seen the eyes that made me a spawn of Satan, because this is what your eyes look like when you're the devil's child. I seen all these things that she told me all my life, and that I had to look past that and understand that that's not me. And until you learn to love yourself, you can't love anybody else. So I started working on things that made me love me. And my husband and I have been married 17 years. About half of that, he's had to deal with my insecurities and my trauma.
And so 17 years ago, or even longer than that, did you know the difference between a healthy, loving relationship and one that was full of abuse or blame? Could you
No.
distinguish between the two?
No, because if there wasn't chaos, I had to create it because I thought that was normal. And you don't realize you're doing it, but you are. Because I didn't know how to survive in anything other. I had to make myself the savior.
What do you think the difference is between a survivor and a victim? Because you feel very much like a survivor, but then obviously, listen to the story, you were a terrible victim of a terrible situation. But how do you distinguish between the two?
So, a victim is somebody who sits and allows it to drag you down. A survivor is somebody who takes it and gives it purpose in your life to make your life better. All the things that happened to me, all the words they said, you're going to be white trash. You're never going to succeed. That's why I've been successful. What was meant to break me is the reason I'm successful. You know, I own my own business. I'm a real estate investor. Before that, I ran car dealerships, the finance department. I'm an overachiever because of it. So I think a victim is mindset. You have to decide. It's up to you. Only you can decide if you're going to be a victim and you're going to allow it to control your every point of your life. Because the way I look at it is what's back there in the rearview mirror, I can't change it, so ain't no sense in looking back. If I keep my eyes forward, that's where my destiny's at, not behind me.
Did you, when you were growing up, and I can't imagine how you could have done, but did you have faith that there was a positive future out there? Was there a spiritual side that supported you, or was it just about you and your sister?
I actually didn't despise religion because my mother used it against us. It was a weapon. We were possessed by the devil. Um, we were abomination. God was going to punish us. We were never getting forgiveness for us. So definitely not a spiritual side. We were made to think that we weren't worthy of God's love because we were abomination. And we were possessed. We've always been told we were possessed, that demons followed us. It was a weapon.
And now you're living in rural Tennessee, and I imagine a small town that feels more peaceful. Does spirituality and faith, has it come back into your life?
No, and I actually have my kids in a private Christian school. My husband is Christian, and I allow my children to make a decision for themselves. I don't influence their decision one way or another. But I don't know that I could ever do that. I was drugged to so many churches, and exercised, and so there's a lot of trauma there for me.
What did your older children feel or think or say when they knew you were writing the book? Or I assume some of them have read the book. What?
No, I think my daughter's read the book, and that's the only one. They haven't said a lot. I think, some of it is obviously going to be embarrassing for them. The whole world's going to know what happened to me. And they didn't have a childhood where they were ashamed of, They always had the best. They always were. In the town we live in now, I guess you'd say I'm one of the prominent citizens in this community. And so I feel safe here. That's the biggest thing. I am in a community that I feel safe here. And so I don't think that the people that are in this community where I live would judge my children or judge me, because they're pretty amazing people. And so I finally belong to a community where I feel safe. Most of the town has read my book already.
And you would certainly hope that most right-minded people would recognise that this is not, your child is not something to be ashamed of or embarrassed by. You were a victim of circumstance, a victim of some terrible people with terrible thoughts and beliefs and attitudes. And you didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing that you did that encouraged this, nothing you did that caused this to happen. It's something that was done to you as opposed to something you were part of, really.
Well, you say that, but when I was divorced, mothers would not allow their sons to date me in Texas because I was the person who got married as a child, and they didn't want somebody like me corrupting their children. So you say that, but that was not the case. It's always been held against me.
And for people listening in the UK or Australia or New Zealand, etc., you were saying before we hit record that it's still legal in half of America to get married at 13 or 14?
Yes. Most of the states you can get married at 16. And I really hope that I create a big enough platform so I can sit on Capitol Hill one day and tell them why they should not allow children to be used as pawns or married off, because they say they want to do something about sex trafficking in this country, but they still allow children to be married. They're still allowing it every day. And they say, well, this religion allows it. Well, I don't care what the religion allows. They're children. And if anybody's ever parented children, I've looked at my children for many years when they hit 13, 14 and thought, how did they really think I was supposed to be a wife at this age? how did anybody expect me to be a mother at this age? And then you told me, well, I failed and I was terrible at it. Well, of course I did. I was a child. You know, my mother-in-law back then was constantly telling me what a useless mother I was and useless. I just wanted to be a kid. Of course I didn't do it right. I was a child.
And in the UK, you've got to be 18 or 16 with the parents' permission. But there's very, very few people get married at 16. It's 18 is the...
There's several 100,000 in this country that get married every year. I'm proud of Tennessee. They don't allow you to marry under 16 without a parent's consent. But if you go to another, we just had an instance where they arrested somebody who was 63 who married a 15-year-old in another state, and then they came here and they arrested him. They couldn't arrest him for the marriage because it happened in another state, but they could arrest him for living with the child and doing what he was doing with the child. It is still a legal way to traffic children. This is a loophole that needs to be closed. If these children can't serve in our military, they can't be husbands and wives. If these children can't buy cigarettes, till 21 years old, are we allowing them to be married? It makes no sense to me. There is no child that can say at 15, 14, 16, that they even know what love is to say, I want to be married to this person. I mean, even 18-year-olds, I think it's too young. You know, you can't buy cigarettes in this country unless you're 21, but you can serve in our military. You can't buy cigarettes until 21, but you can get married at 14.
It just seems, I don't mean to laugh, but it just seems ridiculous. And what, I guess what upsets or confuses me is, at the moment, there's in America and certainly global, really, there's the big issue and conversation about the Epstein files, which is terrible, absolutely terrible. But a lot of those are about women of 16, 17, 18 being trafficked across sort of country lines. But you think almost the silence of 14, 15-year-olds being trafficked within America. It's very odd. You have one that's sort of seen as this huge sort of news story. It's dominated the press. It's, you know, but then you have actually what's actually happening day to day. It doesn't get a mention at all.
No, because they want it kept quiet. They want it swept under the rug. They don't want it to be a big deal. Because a lot of it is done under the guise of religion. And there's a separation of church and state. And they don't want to be seen to stepping on those toes. Neither side. And so often in this country, it's a constant battle of left or right or left or right. But when do we start looking at what's being done in this country? You know, New Zealand and the UK and Australia, they are so far advanced. And that was why these countries, I really wanted to make sure my book was available in these countries. And it is, in every one of them. It's available anywhere you can buy books online. And I hope that I can create a large enough platform that I can make a difference in this country. It's my goal.
It's just a side of American life that certainly people outside of America just don't see or are aware of. So I mean, if I was in the UK and reading a headline that said 300,000 14-year-olds got married in China, I'd be thinking, oh my God, that's terrible. China, how backwards are they? That's terrible. But when you think, no, actually it's America, not China. What? It's almost inconceivable, because we see America as the biggest democracy in the world, the biggest commercial entity in the world, all of these positive things that we see. And yes, we know that there's poverty in America and there's some challenges, of course we do, but we just don't have an awareness of what religion's been used as an excuse for, what people are.
Well, the loophole is that they're expecting these parents to know what's best for their children. But they don't. I mean, as a parent, I have a 15-year-old son right now. If I wanted to marry him off, I could legally sign to marry him off. All I have to do is go down there, get a marriage license with his spouse, sign my name. My mother often says all the time, well, she signed. Of course I signed. I was 14. You were giving me a magic ticket out of hell. I was taking it. Because I couldn't imagine anything being worse than where I was having to be at. I mean, it happens every day.
Can you imagine your 15-year-old son being married?
I can't imagine. I have never looked at one of my children, and I've got 6 of them. I've got 5 sons and 1 daughter. I have never looked at one of them and thought, oh, they're 15, they're 16, they're 17. They're so mature. They can get married. I've wanted to keep them home as long as I could. How long do you want to go to college? Do you want to live at home till you're 30? It's okay. I don't even, I look at how my mother did us, and I can't even fathom how you had to despise somebody so much you could do it. Because the thought, I look at my children, and I have a natural instinct to protect them, to give them better, to provide for them more than I ever had. And no matter what the sacrifice is to me, I never cared about the sacrifice I've made for them, as long as they had it. And I can't imagine how any parent doesn't feel that.
That's part of it's part of the role we want to take on, isn't it? I've only got 2 children, 16 and 18, but I'm 100% the same. Is that there's nothing that I wouldn't do for them, nothing that I wouldn't suffer if it helped them, all of those things. And you just can't imagine somebody feeling very different. Because like I say, I'm sure your 15-year-old son, my 16-year-old son, they're still children. They're still they're still kids. They still do stupid things. They still do amazing things. They still, they're certainly not ready for whatever marriage looks like. So the story that you've written now finishes almost when it starts, really. So finishes when you get married. So are you writing? Will the next?
I am.
Okay. Is that harder or easier the second time around?
I think this one is the hardest one I've had to write, because I can acknowledge that first part was not I had no choices. And in the second part, I did. And so I have a lot of guilt on what my son went through by feeling abandoned by his father. And I have a lot of guilt by my daughter, who was always told that I abandoned her and I didn't want her and I didn't love her. And I have a lot of guilt there. And I look at, maybe if I didn't use anger, could I have had her? Could I have but I don't think the answer was there. I don't think, given the options, I don't think he would have ever, because his new wife was never going to allow me in her life. And this is the reason they didn't want my son, because I was breastfeeding. And in the state of Texas, you can't take a breastfeeding child from a mother. So I would have breastfed him till he was 20 if I had to keep him safe. So they knew they were never getting him, so they just didn't want him, because she didn't want him having to interact with me. Because we had split up and got back together, and that's how I got pregnant with my son. And I guess he had lied to her about it. He had lied to me that he was still with her.
But when you say you had the first 14 years, you had no choice, that was all things that were done to you. But then after that, you had choices, and you made choices you regret. You didn't really have choices. There weren't choices. There weren't choices of free will, though, where one outcome was a very good outcome and one outcome was a very bad outcome.
They were all bad outcomes.
Yeah, well, this is it. It's which outcome is the least worst outcome. So yes, there was a choice, but not a choice that any reasoned person could sensibly make. Really, it's like, do I want to jump into the fire, or do I want to jump into the river? I've got a choice, but it's not a choice really, because both outcomes are both equally terrible.
Well, and putting that into words, it's really an eye-opening experience that says, okay, so this is the choice I made. You know, I had to come up with, as a 17, 18-year-old child, I had to come up with $25,000 for a lawyer to fight for my child, with no help from nobody. Well, how do you think you did that? And I put myself in positions that caused even more trauma. And it's facing those things. I had to make this choice. I put myself in this position. This happened to me because of that. You know, I was raped by all these people because of this. It's hard to put into words.
The actual process of sitting down with a pencil and paper or a typewriter or a computer, whatever, but is it just exhausting, or does it feel cathartic and cleansing somehow?
Both. So we bought a house in Mississippi. I go to in the summer. It's at the Gulfport, Mississippi. It's at the beach, and so I've really been able to just go sit by that ocean and listen to the waves and write. And something about that ocean, it just helps me breathe when I'm writing.
I'm a massive water ocean person, and just the sound of the ocean is just so incredibly powerful. And I completely understand how that gives you almost gives you the power to put the words down, really. And do you find it not hard to remember, as in you don't want to remember, but all the memories are there and they're all very fresh and easy to access?
Some of them not so much. The time from 18 to 19, a lot of them are, I couldn't tell you a lot of things I did during that time. They're a blip. I remember moments. Your brain has a way of protecting you from parts of you that are so traumatic it doesn't think you can deal with. And I mean, I know logic tells me I know what happened to me. But your brain doesn't want you to feel what happened to you. Your body says, okay, you can know, but we're not going to open it back up so you can feel what happened to you. So that's where I'm stuck at in my book, is that year, 18 to 19. And I'm going to go down to Mississippi for 10 days next month, and I'll be unstuck. I can lay there and let the ocean just cleanse it all away.
So when you were at home and you were 12, 13, could you ever?
I wasn't home. From 10 to 14, I was in a state home. Mm-hmm. My mother never called. She never sent a birthday present. She never sent a Christmas present. I tried to call collect. She never answered. When I got off the airplane, when they told me I had to go home, the county was paying for me to be there. When they told me that I had to go home, I begged and I pleaded, please do not send me back there. Please let me stay here. I want to be here till I'm 18. I stole a car. I tried to rob a store so they would let me stay. I said, you can't. The county's not paying for you anymore. It was very expensive. Most of those homes are very expensive. And we lived in a cabin with a counselor, and there's girls and boys. But you didn't live in the same cabin. The girls' cabins were separate. And we had a counselor that was there 6 months and then 6 months off. So that it was the best way. They had stability for us. And most of their husbands worked there too, on the boys' side. And there was probably 16 of us in the cabin, and it was probably the best time of my childhood. They always terrified me of how bad juvenile was going to be for me, worse than where I was living, and how bad this stay home was going to be. But it really was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I think that's the difference between my sister's outcome and my outcome. I felt love. I knew love. I had full school dances. We played sports. I had a life that was about me. And there was somebody that she taught me how to do my hair. There was somebody that taught me how to do my makeup. There was somebody that didn't say, oh, look at you. You just look like a whore. At 10 years old. So there was somebody there that loved me. And I really think that made the difference of my life and my sister's life, because there was nobody to love her.
So when you were 14 and you were forced to go back home, could you have imagined then what your life would be like now?
No. I was a reader, and I liked to escape as a child into these fairy tales and lives that girls like me could never get. To be sitting where I'm at today, what I have, I could have never dreamed it. I couldn't, in the wildest fairy tale, I couldn't have dreamed.
Well, if anyone deserves it, it's you
Thank you.
and your sister. But yeah. So how do you look after yourself now? How do you look after your mental, physical well-being? What do you do to nurture yourself?
I talk to everybody. um, as crazy as it sounds, once you tell the world what happened to you, it's like the animal that's been sitting on your chest. It's off. There's nothing more freeing. And I tell people all the time, you don't have to publish your story, but just write it down, and I want you to go back and read it. And instead, all the things you were ashamed of, look at how strong you were because you survived them. You know, I titled my book The Girl Who Kept Breathing because there were so many times I tried not to. There were so many times I didn't think I could make it another day. I'd lay in bed and think, I cannot do another day. There's no way I can do another day. And I kept breathing, so.
That's what I wanted to end with, really. So your book ends with the idea that there's always another breath, another way forward. So for someone perhaps listening that's in a very dark moment, that finds it a struggle to know what the future holds, what would you say to them about taking that next breath?
As long as you're breathing, there's still hope. And our path is not our destination. We are in control of our future, not the terrible things that have happened to us. And if you own what happened to you and you use it as a reason to succeed, it really puts you in a place that you're going to have never dreamed you were going to be, a place that you didn't think you deserved.
I really like that. Our path is not our destination. It's so true, so true. So when do you hope to finish the next book?
I will have it finished by end of summer.
And will this be the last one? This brings you up to date? No. Okay. When does this take us up to?
This will probably take us up to, so after I got divorced from my first husband, I was with my second two children's dad, and he passed away from a brain aneurysm. So, yeah. I've known trauma in my life for the first 30 years of it. It was nothing but one big roller coaster of trauma.
Do you love yourself now?
I do love myself now. And you want to know the craziest thing? And a therapist told me this, and I just thought they were absurd when they said it. When you love yourself and you look in the mirror, you actually see beauty instead of flaws. I didn't change. I look exactly the same. But I changed in my own brain. My mind decided what I looked like, and so that's what I see.
Well, hopefully you see the beauty that everybody else sees now. You are very beautiful.
Thank you.
In your spirit and in your presence and in your aura, really. So you've come through things that would destroy 99% of people. And you've come out now to be an amazing mom, an amazing grandmother, and an amazing wife, and an amazing friend, and all those things. You should be incredibly proud.
Well, I have a lot to thank for my friend. I have a friend that's been there for me, that's listened to me many hours upon a day. So I'm pretty thankful for her.
Gosh, just thank you so much for your time. You've been incredibly open and generous and charismatic and just very inspiring, I think is the right word.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Absolute pleasure.